Jamie's talking about a place you go in, you sauna, you cold plunge. It's a very low labor model, low variable cost model. And I'm sitting there in the crowd saying, oh, this business makes a lot of sense to me. And I think we're in the first inning. South Boston, in year one, it will do 1.5 million plus in its first 12 months of operation. That's a studio that should have a 35 to 40% floor wall margin.
So you're working at Prospect Hill Partners.
Yep.
Jamie's giving a presentation on SweatHouz. And that guy, people have listened to my past episodes with him. He knows how to pump up a room. What about that presentation got the wheels turning for you, where you eventually left a pretty stable corporate job to become a franchisee?
Yeah, so this was back in 2022. I was 28 years old, sitting in a room full of a bunch of private equity investors. Jamie's in the middle of making his presentation on what legacy franchise concepts was. And the biggest part of legacy franchise concepts was SweatHouz. So Jamie's talking about a place you go in, you sauna, you cold plunge. It's a very low labor model, low variable cost model. And I'm sitting there in the crowd saying, wow, this business makes a lot of sense to me. And I think we're in the first inning. So after the presentation, I was actually in the middle of training for a charity boxing match called Haymakers for Hope, where you train for boxing, you raise money for cancer research, and then you get in the ring and have a 3-round fight. So I went to try out SweatHouz as a way to recover from getting punched in the head during sparring so much. And the minute I stepped inside SweatHouz, and this was SweatHouz V1, it was studio number 13 in Somerville, Massachusetts, and it was a place that had 9 saunas and 1 cold plunge. So it wasn't even really what SweatHouz is today, but it was an entrance into that. Walked in, was greeted by staff. There was only 2 people working there. Everything was clean. I got an hour in a sauna suite. I got to do a 5-minute cold plunge. And I felt unbelievable after. Probably the best I've ever felt. And I walked out that day, contacted Jamie and said, can we meet for coffee? Because I need to be your first franchisee. And the rest is history from there.
So were you the first franchisee? And how quickly from that meeting, which I think you said May 2022, did you actually sign the paperwork and officially become a franchisee?
Yeah, so it was funny. I was the first franchisee, but also the first meet the team day. So I went down to Atlanta, met with Jamie's whole team, very impressive team. But it was They were still figuring it out too. Like the meet the team day was kind of very thrown together. It was really just conversational. It's very different from the meet the team days the team has now. But it was cool because I got to see the beginnings of what is now known as SweatHouz, SWTHZ, not even the full word anymore. And that meet the team day happened in late June because SweatHouz was still getting all their franchising docs in order. And then I signed my franchise agreement August 4th, 2022.
That's a quick turnaround. I mean, in the span of 3 months, your life's on a different trajectory, man.
Yeah, so look, it was one of those things. I was so confident in what Jamie and the team were building. I was so confident in what I was seeing at the studio in Boston, just seeing the various walks of life. You know, I always say SweatHouz doesn't really have a type. You can be old, young, fit, not fit, and you could still love SweatHouz just as much.
We'll get into how you got from that first location to where you are today with 5 and more in development. But I know your father, I think, had a bit of an influence on just your thoughts around entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. So can you just talk about kind of what his path and his career was like with restaurants and maybe even before that, before he got his start with the restaurant?
Yeah, definitely. My father's my best friend. We talk 1,000 times a day, and he's been probably the biggest impact in my life and continues to be every single day. My dad was, had a little used car lot back in the early 2000s, and if they sold 1 car a month, it was a pretty good month. But the cars that rolled off the lot probably had a broken engine, maybe a broken taillight. Things weren't really great at the used car lot. Late 2002, he had a friend approach him that had a restaurant that was going out of business. It was in the North End. Now, if you know Boston, you know the North End has 86 Italian restaurants in a 2-block radius. It's, everybody serves the same chicken parm, Del Marsala, all that stuff. So my dad said, to his friend, you're crazy. A, I can't afford a restaurant, but B, what do I know about running a restaurant? Other than the fact that at the time my dad was about 350 pounds, so he knew how to eat at restaurants for sure. But my dad is a larger-than-life character and is, in my opinion, the greatest personality in the world. So he ended up finding a way, borrowing money left and right to buy this first restaurant. And this was in probably, at this point, it was February 2003. And he spent the next 3 months transforming the restaurant. And a week before opening, he said, how do I become different? How do I make a splash? So through a friend of a friend, he found a way to get some of the stars of The Sopranos at the opening, taking out yet another loan to just get them there. And really just laying it all on the table. My dad says all the time, in order to be successful, you got to lay it down to pick it up. And he embodies that to the fullest. So we had, Vincent Pastore there. We had Lorraine Bracco. We had Paulie Walnuts, who was played by Tony Sirico. Christopher Moltisanti was there. And this was in May of 2003 when The Sopranos was the hottest show out there. Arguably the greatest show of all time, but it was the hottest show out there. And they came to the opening of a 50-person Italian restaurant in the middle of Boston. Boston media didn't know what to make out of it. My dad shut down the street for the opening. It was a party like you had never seen. And the next night, when he went live for the real opening to customers, the line was out the door and around the corner. And to me, that showed me that in life, you're going to have opportunities that you may not feel comfortable taking those opportunities, but if you lay it down to pick it up, more likely than not, you'll be successful. It's going to take a lot of sweat, blood, and tears to get there, but it's going to work as long as you put in the 110 hours it takes. And my dad turned that 150-person restaurant into a portfolio of restaurants that he sold a bunch of them right before COVID. And today, we still own the same 50-person restaurant on the same street in Boston on Hanover Street, and it's still packed every night.
Holy crap. That's a hell of a story.
Yeah.
And I love that line, lay it down to pick it up. Do you know how a week before opening, I know your last name's Varano, so you got Italian roots, man, but how the heck did he get in touch with people who are pretty serious TV stars just within a week's time and get them to come to Boston of all, we're not talking New York here. Like, Boston's an Irish town, man. It's more for me than maybe New York would be. So yeah, how did he pull that off?
He had a friend that lived out in Vegas that was connected to the agent of one of the Sopranos. So he called his friend and said, you got to find me a way to get some of the Sopranos here. I can't take no for an answer. Whatever it takes, just get them here. So Now at the time, my dad had spent like every penny to transform the restaurant. The restaurant had baby blue walls when he took it over. He transformed it. He put 6 flat screens in the restaurant when flat screens were like the toughest thing to get. Flat screen TVs back then were like a dime a dozen. And he really just told his friend, figure it out. His friend ends up calling him back and says, look, they want $100,000 and they want it today. And my dad goes, tell them it's all set. Tell them it's all set. I'll get them. So the guy called my dad and says, all right, Nick, you're in Boston. They're in Los Angeles. How are you going to get this done today? And my dad said, don't worry about it. They'll get $100,000 today. And their hotel is all comped on me. Just get them to Boston. My dad found a way to get them $100,000 delivered that day. They came to the opening, and I think if you asked, some of them would probably say it was one of the best parties they had been to. And my dad stayed close with a lot of them over the course of 20 years. Some have passed on, but like Vincent Pastore is still a close friend of my dad, which is just funny.
I was born and raised in Jersey, so Sopranos is obviously, it's famous for a lot of reasons, but...
But what I take out of that whole thing is, again, in life there's going to be opportunities, and the door may only be half cracked. But if you put enough willpower behind it, you can get that door open. And then once the door's open, it's on you to be successful and figure out what comes next.
No, 100%, man. Pivoting back to SweatHouz, all of a sudden your decision to leave Prospect Hill and become a franchisee of SweatHouz doesn't sound that risky compared to what your dad did. Mm-hmm. So now, did you acquire that first location in Boston, or was your first location a build-out?
No, so after talking with Jamie, they had just opened that location at Assembly Row. So it made sense for me to buy licenses, but also acquire that first studio. And Jamie and the team, they wanted to support me in that, not only in the transition, but finding a way to acquire it, which speaks volumes to the team at SweatHouz and how they care about the franchisees. So that was an acquisition. And again, they had only been open about 4 months at the time that I got involved. So it was nice because I was stepping into something that already had a nice base, but we could take that base and grow. And again, it was Jamie and I came to a number of licenses that at the time I was like, wow, I'm buying 15 licenses. This is a big bet. But having that background of, my dad taking a chance, to me, it was like, you know what, I can do this.
Now that you've built a number of locations, would you say that ability to assume the role of owning a location that, like you said, already 4 months in, was that like an advantage for you in that you got to learn a lot quicker versus have to wait to go through the build out process and all the other things beforehand?
Absolutely. It was the biggest advantage. Look, I don't call myself successful, but we have some good studios here in Boston. If my journey had started any differently and I started with building my first studio, our studios wouldn't be as successful as they are today. When you walk into a studio that's already open and a team that's already built, and what I did was I immersed myself in that studio. I was there every day. I was taking opening shifts, closing shifts. I was trying to figure out how the cold plunge worked. I was deep cleaning the cold plunge. I wanted to learn everything to the nth degree so that if I was willing to go above and beyond, hopefully my team was willing to go above and beyond. And also, stepping into a studio that was already producing revenue gave me that leg up to then go to my bank and say, hey, look, here's the playbook we're running. Let's go, give me funding to do the next ones, which I'm sure we'll get into. Yeah. But it definitely was a massive leg up. And again, our team wouldn't be where we are in Boston with the 5 studios we have if it wasn't for that initial decision by Jamie and his team to sell me the Assembly Row studio.
Definitely. And I know the model has evolved, but what was SweatHouz at the time? You mentioned the number of cold plunges and saunas. What was it if you were walking into a store?
Yes, the conversion from SweatHouz V1 to SweatHouz V2 where it is today is probably the best thing about SweatHouz in my opinion. When I walked into SweatHouz V1, I was blown away because I'd never seen anything like it. But now comparing it to the V2s, it's like, wow, it wasn't that great actually. It was 9 saunas in 1 cold plunge. So you actually would do a full session in the sauna and then walk across the hall to do the cold plunge. And some people really weren't even doing the cold plunge, so the idea of contrast therapy was still evolving. It was very sterile, gray walls, almost had a little bit of a hospital vibe to it in a way. And again, it wasn't that it was bad, and at the time I thought it was amazing. But what the team at SweatHouz created when we switched to V2 and made them full contrast therapy suites, and we opened the first fully contrast therapy SweatHouz here in Burlington, Mass. In February of 2024, where you had the sauna, the cold plunge, and the vitamin C shower in all of this in your same suite, and you get an hour in there and you could go back and forth, and you had tile up and down the wall, you had a TV in the room, everything was just so perfect. And that transition from V1 to V2 optically was amazing, but also the usability of the room and being able to go from, hey, I'm going to do 20 minutes in the sauna, I'm going to rinse off in the vitamin C, I'm going to hit a 5-minute cold plunge, and then I'm going to do that again, was a really nice game changer for us.
From the customer standpoint, what is contrast therapy? And aside from, I think most people could probably relate to if they've done a sauna or a steam room session, like you do feel better. But I got to imagine there's some actual tangible health benefits that we can point to for doing contrast therapy specifically. And yes, if you kind of just explain what the general benefits are and why you want to do a sauna, cold plunge, etc.
Yeah, so, what's funny is I think when we first opened and SweatHouz was still ramping up, it was, wow, I'm going to get a nice fits going, I'm going to get a deep sweat, I'm going to sweat out maybe the mistakes of the night before. And then I'm going to, I see people cold plunging online and it looks cool, let me try it, Joe Rogan's doing it, let me jump in.
Yep.
And that has totally transformed in the last 2 years to people actually understand what contrast therapy is. They realize it's more than just feeling hot, right? You're getting that detox in, but you're also getting muscle recovery. It's repairing all your sore muscles. People are starting to understand that when you're in the sauna, you're also boosting circulation. And when you have that increased blood flow, your recovery time's a lot faster, right? The other thing about the cold plunge is when you put in the cold plunge and you can start to find that balance between hot and cold, not only are you increasing the results you're seeing from reduced inflammation, which is going to reduce sicknesses and diseases in the future, it's also going to make you feel better from a physical and mental well-being. We say it all the time, but SweatHouz is physical recovery, but it's just as much mental recovery. Today, right, we're all on our phones, right? We don't put this thing down. All day, we don't put it down, right? If we send an email, we want a response right away. If we send a text, we want a response right away. If we DM someone, if they're not DMing us back in a second, it's agitating, right? SweatHouz is truly the only space you can get in and disconnect from everything, right? You leave your phone outside the sauna, put on some music, and you spend an hour to yourself, in your thoughts, trying to just figure out, all right, what am I feeling in this moment? And that part of contrast therapy, in my opinion, is what people didn't realize first. That it's not just this cool thing to do. It's not just a way to sweat out 300 calories. It's not just a way to feel cold and, look in the mirror and look skinny because I just did a cold plunge. It's so much more than that. And clients now see that. We see all walks of life, like I said earlier. You have the people that work out and want to do this for recovery. You have the people that are trying to lose a little bit of weight. You have the school teachers that are trying to decompress after a long school day. And maybe aren't really focused truly on the physical benefits, but really want to just focus on the mental benefits. And the idea of contrast therapy is becoming more and more mainstream every single day. But I still believe that contrast therapy is in the first inning of its cycle, in my opinion.
There's certainly a boom of interest in this, not just from customers, but you can even see it, right? Like the supply side. So businesses like SweatHouz, where I haven't seen another one doing exactly what SweatHouz is doing. There's obviously other franchises who would brand themselves in the wellness space. So yeah, I think it's a big category, and it's going to be really interesting to see where it ends up in 5, 10 or so years. Just as you're talking about what the concept is, it feels like I can visualize the type of customer. So I'm curious, when you're building locations, are you following, this is the New York City coming out, and maybe like a Barry's boot camp, or I don't know, maybe like a Solid Core. Do you guys have kind of that lookalike audience pinned down at this point for who the target customers are who would want to be a member?
We follow a lot of different brands, but the ones you mentioned, Barry, Solid Core, those are obviously the Terry. I think Brian and the team at Solid Core have done an amazing job building that brand and also selecting real estate, right? If Solid Core, Barry's, and Equinoxes of the world are going to spend the money on looking at real estate, me as a franchisee, all right, I don't really have to go hire somebody that's great at telling me where to put locations. I can just follow them because they've done the research. In terms of the clients, yes, if we can open up near the first SweatHouz was on Fit Row here in Somerville. It had Orange Theory, Title, Club Pilates, Pure Barre, all in the same hallway.
That's perfect.
That was a perfect start because I had my core customer. Whenever we go to open up new ones, we're always looking at, all right, what's in the community? And it's not just from I want their customers. It's who can we activate events with? We bring our portable cold tubs to every fitness studio in Boston. This past summer, we've done 135 events in 3 months. So we've brought our tubs everywhere. Yeah, guerrilla marketing is still a thing. If people tell you that it's all digital, they're dead wrong. Guerrilla marketing still works, and that is why it's nice for us when we're in a community to know that we have a Solid Core nearby. We have a Barry's. Here in Boston, we have an Everybody Fights big box gym. It's been nice on the real estate front, but it's also nice when you open up a studio with over 200 members day one, and you are profitable month one, which I think is a big leg up in the SweatHouz system.
The pre-marketing phase that a membership model business can execute on is such an advantage relative to other concepts. Can you talk more about that guerrilla marketing, the mobile cold plunge thing? What are you doing, and why are these other businesses allowing you? Because to me, I'm just what's the upside for them?
Yeah, so our first event I remember was with Orange Theory, and it was, hey, we're having this boot camp workout, and we'd love you to bring a cold plunge. So in my head, I'm, all right, how am I going to get a cold plunge there? So ended up renting a U-Haul, took a cold plunge out of the studio for the day, and brought it to Orange Theory. So literally in the middle of their workout floor, we had a SweatHouz tub. And what we realized was people were seeing the cold tub and automatically intrigued by it. And better than that, Orange Theory was excited to have us there because it was an added amenity for that specific day. Yeah. So what we did was we made it a massive part of our pre-sale process, where every franchisee had to have at least 4 to 6 events every month. Here in Boston, what we realized was in the summer, we have natural seasonality, right? In the summer, everybody in Boston, goes to the Cape, goes to Nantucket. They have actually time to spend outside because it's 3 months out of the year where the weather's actually not crappy. So we realized, okay, if our studios are going to be a little bit slower, what can we do to drive marketing? So I bought these, 4 vertical aluminum tubs, branded them SweatHouz, got a couple party plunges from Plunge, and we launched events. And we have an event tonight, we have an event tomorrow, where we're going to a gym. They are promoting us. We're providing cold plunges at the end of their sessions. We have QR codes so we can generate leads, and then the leads funnel into our system. And The content we get from these events is crazy. People posting them on Instagram, they're videoing themselves jumping in a cold plunge. What's their reaction? And most recently, we've been part of a launch of a bi-weekly event series called Ritual, where it's a 9 a.m. run club. And if you want to do the run club, there's a 9 a.m. Pilates class, because obviously Pilates is booming. There's a 10 a.m. boot camp workout, and then there's a 10:45 after party with coffee and plunges. And I've never seen so many people run to a cold plunge right after a workout, and the content goes crazy. Thousands of views, and because all of our tubs are branded, they then know, hey, I want to go check out that place, SweatHouz.
I love it because, I mean, just especially with, everyone's talking about AI and, I mean, we're just going deeper and deeper down the tech rabbit hole with most businesses. But here's something where, I mean, this is good old-fashioned, just in-person marketing. And I think it's just awesome that you're able to execute on that and how it even amplifies the digital, because I could totally see how people are going to put that on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, and that's more eyes on SweatHouz in the local community. So it's such a good approach.
On that point about the Instagram ability, what the SweatHouz team did an amazing job of is when you come into a SweatHouz suite, you have the floor-to-ceiling tile. You have a mirror that faces the cold plunge that's backlit. Like, we are encouraging people to share that they are at SweatHouz. And I think that's also driven a lot of eyeballs. The UGC, or user-generated content, that we get from all the people out there, not even just the influencers or the micro-influencers, just the everyday people, it's really impactful. Now, I don't think people want to see me cold plunging, but if I share my post, somebody may say, hey, I want to go try that too.
It's such an edge. And also just those speaks to, I think, the level at which the team at SweatHouz has thought through it. Because, yeah, I mean, you got to do that intentionally. People aren't just going to magically post about your brand, but clearly you guys have positioned it in a way where you're taking advantage of that upside. So you took over in August of 2022, the store in Boston. When did the next store get opened, and where in the Boston area was it?
Yeah, so the next store actually didn't open for probably, I want to say it was about 16 months. And the reason for that wasn't because we didn't want to open more. It was because we changed the model in between. So, we had a set of drawings. We had to go redo that. We had started construction. We had to go redo that. And at the time, I thought it was like, oh, this is crazy. I'm just wasting money. But it was the greatest thing to ever happen because we changed from that V1 to the V2. So we opened up Burlington as the first contrast therapy studio in the country. We had a massive party. We had Kevin Cooney in the cold plunge, Masson LaCroix in the cold plunge. We had people fly in, a lot of the franchisees flown in. Jamie took his whole team up. And we had probably a 200-person party in the middle of the winter in the parking lot outside of the studio. And it was a great launch. It's a studio in the suburbs, but it produces city-like numbers. And again, it all comes back to that change in the model, putting everything in the same room, makes a big difference from the customer experience, from the client experience standpoint.
Completely. It sounds awesome. Like, I know you guys are building in New York soon, so I can't wait to hopefully be a member.
Yeah, we've got to spend some time talking about that later on too.
Yeah. Well, I know even with your dad being an entrepreneur, oftentimes franchisees on that first build out, there's a bit of a learning curve. So is there anything that sticks out as far as mistakes you made in that build out process that could be useful for other potential franchisees listening to this, of what not to do, I guess?
What not to do, number one, is don't think you're a GC. I think I could, hire the trades myself, and, I know an electrician, I know a plumber, and boy, was that a big F up in my opinion. So that would be rule number one. Rule number two is just, if you're going to worry about construction, there's only two things that you should really worry about every day, and that's schedule and budget. Schedule, for the first part, is are you going to deliver the space on time? And if not, what can we do to get back on track? So having, 2 calls a week just on schedule. Budget, especially in SweatHouz, these things are not cheap to build because the way they come out is spectacular. But if you lose track of the budget and you're just spending recklessly because you want it to look amazing and you want it done fast, you will overspend and you're just increasing your payback time. The last thing I'll mention is spend more upfront. Hire the best architect. Spend time with your GC going over the drawings early to catch stuff so that when you're at the beginning process, it's a lot easier to make a change. When you catch stuff and the walls are already up, Boy, that's a bad day. That's a lot of bad news on a single day because now Wall's got to move and you're basically going back and spending more money on things you already spent on. So if I had to summarize, it's control the schedule, control the budget, hire a really good GC, even if they're not the cheapest, hire a really good GC, and then get that GC involved early and often. The sooner you can start your drawings, the better, not just so that you can review them, but then you're not paying dead rent if your lease starts before you're open.
Well, so was your intent to, when you said you were trying to be the GC, that you were just maybe trying to save some money on, because a GC can be costly, but you're just trying to save money and kind of put the pieces together yourself and ideally get it done for less money? Was that the thought?
I honestly thought, I was like, you know what? These things aren't that hard to build. If you really look at it, it's eight to nine bathrooms. Like, there's no toilet. You just put a sauna. And my biggest flaw in life is I think I can just figure things out. Like, I don't think around walls. I try to think through them or just run through them. So I don't think it was me trying to save money. More so I was like, I can figure this out. And if I build one, then I'll know for the next couple, that I can do it. But that was a waste of time, money, brain power. I think the only thing I actually contributed to was demolition. I knocked a wall down and I thought, wow, this is awesome. But it made that journey, I'm a very positive guy. The cup's always half full. That experience in Burlington and making as many mistakes as I made helped me when I built the next three. Because I built the next three all at the same time in October and November of 2024, so about a year ago. And I hired a GC. We did things the right way. We met twice a week on schedule and budget. And the end product was better. So it allowed me to, in life, if you aren't making mistakes, you're not learning and you're not going to be successful, in my opinion. I'd rather make a mistake every single day and hopefully not make the same mistake twice.
So you went from, you acquired, the existing one in Boston, and then, built Burlington, which we talked about some hiccups along the way. But then you went from that to, all right, I'm going to hire a GC and just do things the right way. But instead of building the next one, you built three at once.
Yeah,
Holy
put the
crap.
foot on the pedal. And that was always the plan. I wanted to go really fast.
Did you use the same GC for all three locations?
Mm-hmm. Because they were all in the same timeline. Like, we took possession at the same time, and they all got opened between the dates of October 6th and November 15th. So we opened three within a 1 month time frame.
That is crazy. I mean, how did you, from a real estate standpoint, how did you execute that? Yeah, I mean, you must have been pretty confident that you had the model as far as, again, we talked about location a little bit earlier with like solid core and stuff. You must have been pretty confident that you know where to put these now.
I mean, look, Assembly Row was the #1 studio in the country. So I had confidence there, and that was a V1. Burlington opened with a splash. So I secured 3 more leases and said, this is my first, well, probably my second, getting into SweatHouz's first franchise. It was the first lay it down to pick it up. This was my second. Hey, I got a little proof of concept here. I was able to convince my bank, Northern Bank, who, I'm grateful for them in so many different ways, to get behind me. And I also was getting the advice from people that had done it before. Jamie was giving me amazing advice. Obviously, my dad, a former guy I worked for, Ken Murphy, was giving me a lot of advice. But I also was able to call Cal and say, hey, Cal, I got something here, I think. Is it time to really hit go? And he said, Nico, the faster you can move, the better with this because you have proof of concept. So that is how I said, you know what, let's go do 3 at once. Let's run the same pre-sale playbook because now I'm doing all these events in the summer because we were doing pre-sales from June to September. So now I'm like, all right, every event I do, I'm spreading over 3 studios. So we were able to open up, at the time, it was one of the largest pre-sales in South Boston. In Hingham, we had really strong numbers, opened up with over 200 members. And then in Chestnut Hill, it was only 6 suites, but we opened up with over 150 members. In each studio, our first month, we were profitable.
I mean, man, people would kill for that. A lot of folks don't see profit for 12 months, 18 months. I mean, even a franchisee of SweatHouz, Ben Little, Zaxby's owner, and I think his top performing store in the Zaxby's system, he's talked about this. I think it took 4 years before he saw a profit there. Obviously, totally different concept, right? Fast food, chicken versus this. But that's just incredible. So is month 1 volatile in any way as far as like retaining members? Or is it just been, you've maintained that at least profitability or break even since they've all opened?
So we have maintained profitability or break even since we've opened. We still have some founding members. We're a year, it's 11 to 12 months later now. So the group of founding members is a bit smaller. I think the lifetime of a SweatHouz member is probably closer to 7 to 8 months, in my opinion, or based on our studio. So naturally, some of those people have transitioned out. But the ones that have stayed are the ones that come in 3 times a week, right? They've built this into their wellness routine. What is amazing about SweatHouz is how quickly the word spreads about what SweatHouz is, because there's not really a lot of competition, right? You have the ultra luxury remedy place. You have the mom and pops that have one sauna, one cold plunge. But in my opinion, nobody at scale has done what SweatHouz has, where you have 7 to 10 suites with a sauna, cold plunge, and vitamin C shower that you get for a full hour. And you can bring a +1 if you want. You don't have to. And that's your suite. We're not complicating the model. We're keeping it extremely simple. And because of the simplicity of the model, merged with the ultra luxury feel of the model, we have created something that, in my opinion, is very tough to compete with. And our footprint only grows. We just opened up SweatHouz wide Studio 70, which is awesome because, back in 2022, we were at Studio 13.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. And
you asked about the profitability of the model. Your expenses in month 1 are the same expenses you're going to have in month 12. Right? If anything, you're probably spending more in month 1 than you are in month 12. And that, to me, is one of my favorite things about SweatHouz, not to focus on expenses, but it is a low variable cost. The more appointments, more sessions I can do at SweatHouz, the more members I can get, the more packs I can sell. At some point, 90% of that additional sale flows through to the bottom line.
well, from a customer standpoint, if I'm a member, is there an app or am I going to the website to can I guarantee and book my time in a sauna to see what's even available, since it is going to be my private sauna?
Yeah. So the SweatHouz app is the best way to book, where you can track how many sessions you've done. If you're in Boston now, you can put, hey, show me session times at these 5 studios. So now you're looking at all the studios. So if I'm closest to Chestnut Hill, I can go to Chestnut Hill. If I'm closer to South Boston, I can go to South Boston. If you want to book online, you can book on the website, or you can just call the studio. Look, I come from a hospitality background. If you want an appointment and we're not sold out, we'll figure a way to get you in.
I can see why it resonates. As far as building the 3 at once, was part of your mindset, given the this space, right, still emerging, still developing, this wellness space, did you see opportunity to kind of plant the flag and be that brand in the Boston area that would be known? Was that part of your thought process of, there's white space here, and if it's not us, someone else is going to take it?
Absolutely. And that's why moving fast was the plan. And our selection of real estate, look, we have one studio in what I would call the city of Boston, right? It's in South Boston. It's the number 1 SweatHouz in the country. It does numbers that you wouldn't believe.
Southie?
Yeah, Southie. Which you would think is, people don't think Southie's the wellness capital of Boston, but it really has become something.
I've spent some time there years after college. I would definitely not assume that.
Yeah, it's with all the local Pilates concepts, the local fitness concepts, and just the demographic of consumers, because they're seeing all this stuff on Instagram, on the TikToks. They're seeing it. They want to try it. Then they try it and they get hooked. And we've really capitalized on that. But it was also, I wanted to spread out into the suburbs. So we had Burlington, we had Somerville, which is basically Boston, so very close. We went to Chestnut Hill, another suburb, but in a shopping center by WS Development that, in my opinion, is one of the best shopping developments in the country. Where you have the Aloe, you have Solid Core, you have Barry's. And then we went all the way down to Hingham, which was South Shore. And that decision was made because we had people driving from the South Shore all the way to Assembly Row when we only had one studio. And being able to look at that data and say, hey, I want to go plant a flag down there. And that is in a shopping center that, is good, not great, but it's producing numbers that, is in the top quartile of all SweatHouses across the country. And I think it's a big credit to A, my team, but B, how we planted the flag with multiple studios at once. Our marketing dollar went a lot further. So now everybody's seeing ads across the, eastern part of the state. And when we opened, it was a mass rush to come in and try SweatHouz.
Can you share whatever you're comfortable sharing? I mean, maybe Southie would be an interesting one, but just because you're coming up on 12 months open of these V2 models of SweatHouz, whether it's revenue or just margins at scale, what does this business look like?
Yeah, so I'll speak to my studios, what we're seeing in Boston, because those are the numbers I'm obviously comfortable sharing because I know them at heart. So again, I think with South Boston, it's an outlier in so many different ways because this year, South Boston in year one, opened November of 2024, halfway through the month, it will do 1.5 million plus in its first 12 months of operation. Now, when you think about that and you think about the very fixed cost base of a SweatHouz studio, that's a studio that should have a 35 to 40% four-wall margin, which again,
after royalties,
it should have a 35 to 40% margin, paying a 6% royalty and a 2% brand fund.
So, but the 35%, you're saying
that's
after
inclusive
the royalty?
Yeah, that's our four-wall margin. And when you think about a studio like that, you put it in a city, your payback is a lot better than, if you put a studio somewhere else. So again, it goes to the fact of the higher dollar revenue you can generate because of the extremely fixed cost base. You know what your expenses are every month. If you can go get additional revenue, it's going to flow through. On average, our 5 studios, 3 of them just opened. Those 3 will all average about 1.2 million, including South Boston. So the other ones are doing closer to about $1.1 million in their first year. And then Burlington will do about $1.2 million this year in revenue. But what's more impressive about Burlington is we are growing at about a 20% clip year over year.
And I'd imagine being in Boston proper, the rent's going to be higher relative to Somerville or some of these other spots, correct?
This is where real estate selection, I probably am not great at construction. I'll be the first to say that, but real estate, I think I can get pretty creative on. In South Boston, just to put that 1.5 million into perspective, we are located on Broadway, which obviously you know, but it's not main and main, but it's pretty good. We are in the back space behind a 10 Dental. So we're in the back. So you actually have to walk down a long hallway. We only have about 12 feet of frontage. So we have a sign and a door. And then you walk down this hallway and you're in the back of SweatHouz. It's like you're being transported into a world of wellness. But it's not like we're main and main with big glass windows and a fancy sign. We are there. We're in the arena. We're not courtside, but we're there. And the fact that we can produce these numbers in the first 12 months gives me a lot of confidence in the model. And that's what's given me the confidence to go look at other high rent locations in the city, not just in Boston, but also New York as well.
Yeah, that's just in general, man, incredible work to get them open. And then I think, people will hear this, and I think there's 2 things. One, it shows the benefit of a membership model where you have the fixed costs and, it's simple to understand, but it's not easy to execute. But, you just got to drive memberships up, get that revenue up, because then it's recurring and you're covering your costs. But I mean, the real key here, though, is there's a lot of businesses out there trying to be a membership model, whether it's fitness, wellness, whatever kind of space it's in. Not many really are providing that experience where you can truly drive that customer interest and retention. And it seems you've talked about how amazing the SweatHouz experience is, and you guys you invest in it. You really want it to be an awesome experience, not just aesthetically, but from a utility standpoint too. So I think that's what's most impressive to me. Just sounds like a great concept and brand.
It's an amazing concept, and thank you for saying that. I think one of the things about SweatHouz is it is a membership model, and the higher you can grow your auto pay base, the better. But we do sell a lot of packs. So I'll just look at, we'll talk about South Boston, but this mirrors a lot of the other studios. Only about 45% of our revenue in Boston comes from memberships. Another big chunk comes from packs. Not only do we do a 5-pack and a 10-pack of sessions, we'll do these promo packs twice a year, once in November and once in May. And there's 3 sessions for $99. And those are the months you see, we had our best month ever in May. And you wouldn't think that because you're heading into non-season. And that is the power of, we're not overly promotional. So when we do a promotion, it makes a big splash.
Yes.
What those promos are really great for is it opens everybody's eyes. Because I may not buy a 5-pack for $289 in Boston without trying it first. So maybe I'll do a 3 for $99. The other part of our revenue that makes up a big chunk is intros. So your first session at SweatHouz is a discounted intro for either $40 to $50 depending on whatever market you're in. You try that first session and you will become hooked to it. And our goal as a team, and why we need great people, and why I'm very fortunate, in my opinion, to have some of the best employees in SweatHouz, is because when you come out of your session, we're going to prescribe to you how often you need to come into SweatHouz. So I'm not trying to sell you. I'm trying to tell you, hey, I know you said you're a runner, you're doing high rocks in the next couple weeks. How often do you think you can fit this into your wellness routine with, how often you work out? They may say, oh, well, I work out 5 days a week. I'm going to say, well, you should probably be doing this about twice a week so that you're getting the recovery benefits and your workouts are actually going to be better following a SweatHouz session. Like, all right, well, if I come in twice a week, what does that look like? And then you can talk about an 8X membership because that makes the most sense. At the end of the day, the reason I think in Boston why we've had luck or success is because it's all about hospitality. At the end of the day, the same way I'm going to get you to order a special at the restaurant and make you feel special, and we say all the time at our family's restaurants, at the end of your meal, if it's a first date, we want you to get that hug or that kiss on the cheek. If you're at a business deal and you come in, we want you to get the signature and the handshake at the end of the dinner. And we're going to do whatever we can to make that dinner special. It's the same exact thing at SweatHouz. If you're coming in and you want to, maybe you're feeling down in the dumps, when you leave that session, we want to make sure you have a smile on your face. We're going to ask, hey, how are you feeling? How long did you last in the cold plunge? Are you feeling the benefits? Hey, we're going to text you tomorrow. Let us know how you slept last night, because the sleep benefits of SweatHouz are crazy. All people want to feel is special. That's all it is, right? It's that simple. If I take 5 minutes out of my shift to spend talking to you about the benefits of SweatHouz and how it may have a great impact on your life, you're more likely to come back in. And you mentioned it earlier. We're in a world now where it's all technology and it's AI and it's, you're talking to Chat. I talk to ChatGPT more than I talk to my wife now. What we're losing as a society and as a country, in my opinion, is that one-to-one conversation. And SweatHouz is a very private experience. Again, you're in your own suite. But if we can make a difference the 5 minutes before your session and the 5 minutes after your session, not only are you more likely to become a member, you're more likely to stay a member much longer. And I think that's the one key thing about whether you're selling meatballs or selling saunas and cold plunges that everybody needs to keep in mind.
Definitely. I think it's brilliant just bringing the hospitality approach to a business like this. And, as you look toward the future, I know you've got a deal in New York City with SweatHouz coming up. And then you've also done something interesting with someone who's become a friend in the Boston area who's an influencer. So do you kind of want to, I don't know if it makes sense to talk about one versus the other or both at the same time.
Yeah, no, we can talk about it at the same time. So, it's funny the way life works. So, we have 5 studios in Boston. We're developing a couple more right now. We're working on a site up at Tuscan Village, which again is an A-plus development by a man of the name Joe Farrow, who's an amazing businessman and somebody, I look up to in the business space for what he's done. So that will be location 6. We're renovating Assembly Row, which is crazy to say because it was only 3 years old. But we're making that a V2, which we expect to have a nice pop here. Working on 2 other deals in the Boston area, but they're not inked yet, so can't speak completely to them. But hopefully one of them is very close to a famous baseball park here in Boston. And then the next growth was, all right, let's go look for additional white space. So I am on the board of SweatHouz, which is great. But the reason I say it is I've developed a great friendship, not only with the gentleman I used to work for at Prospect Hill, but also with some of the key executives at SweatHouz. One by the name Mike Tan, who's worked with me to understand that we believe this concept can do really well in New York City. So that is the next area of growth for us. Still working on finalizing the territory, but one site we have in mind is in Chelsea that we think will do really, really well. So hopefully have that lease signed here in the next couple weeks. And the reason I think it will work so well in New York is because it's a numbers game, right? If I can do the numbers we're doing in South Boston, but I can put one in New York City where you have that demographic plus a lot of others, and you have people that live a crazy, hectic life, and you can open up in an area where people live, but also they transit through to get home from work or to work, I really think it can be successful. Again, with SweatHouz, you only need 8 to 9 people per hour to be busy. If you can't find 8 to 9 people in New York City every hour, you got a big problem. So now I know I can't do it by myself. I'll be the first to tell you that I wanted to bring on somebody, A, I could trust, B, that cared about SweatHouz in the same manner I did, but more importantly than anything, on the good and bad days, if I call this person, we're going to laugh, right? If we're having the worst day ever, we're not going to complain about it. We're going to laugh about it and then figure out where do we go from here. And it was one of my best friends, Kevin Cooney, who is known as a local influencer, but I know him more as just a great guy. I grew up with his wife, and they both love SweatHouz. His wife actually worked at SweatHouz for a bit at one of our studios. But more than anything, they love SweatHouz as part of their routine. And he was thinking about becoming a franchisee in a different market. And I said, Kevin, hold on. I said, you're looking in a different state. You don't even live there. Like, yeah, you could do it, but you're very busy. And the reason he wanted to do it was, and I hope I'm not talking out of turn for him, but he wanted to expand his horizons beyond just being an influencer. In my opinion, he's by far the best influencer in Boston, and brands love him because he has that likability. But he wanted to become an investor. So what him and I did was we started a little, call it a private equity firm. I think we're still figuring out what it exactly looks like. But it's called Twin Oaks Ventures. And the reason we picked Twin Oaks was him and I think a lot alike. I'm far better looking than him, but we're kind of like twins. But we think a lot alike. And an oak tree is the strongest form of a tree, and it has a lot of different branches of things that you could branch out and invest in. So I came up with the name, and he loved it. I told him he was the branding guy, but the name he came back with was Shirley Temple Boys because we both don't drink. And I said, Kev, I think if we go into any serious meeting as the Shirley Temple Boys, I don't think it's going to work out for us. So our first investment is buying 10% of what we're building with SweatHouz. So Twin Oaks Ventures is the first investor in SweatHouz, and although a weird dynamic because I owned 100%, it got Kevin in and got us in, and now we're talking all the time about where do we go from here. In having somebody like Kevin, where like me, the answer is never no. If I say, hey Kev, we got to close this month out strong, you mind coming in and posting a video or posting a link? He does it the next day. And he does it in a creative way where it's not really him selling, it's him posting about why he likes SweatHouz. And I have a theory that the world of influencing and with brands is going to continue to evolve, right? You see what some of these influencers are doing with their brands. Alex Cooper is doing it better than most, right? Starting her own brand. I don't think anybody's really said in the influencing world, I want to become an investor and I want to help build brands. And I think Kevin has that unique opportunity. One, because he's likable, but two, because he's smart and he has a good head on his shoulders. And I think when you have that combination of things and you add in a business that's already performing like our SweatHouz portfolio, great things can happen overnight. So that's Twin Oaks Ventures in a nutshell.
I think it's really smart. If there's franchisees listening to this, you've kind of tapped into it really nice. Not just, someone who can almost be sort of like a business partner, right? Like you said, it can be a lonely road if you're doing it yourself, but also just that ability to tap into local distribution for your business is so key. So I don't know. I don't think I've really ever heard of many franchisees doing that, to be honest, beyond small, maybe local influencer campaigns, but really bringing someone on as a true partner, I think makes a huge difference. And I also would love to talk about and see if it's been a part of the play for, and this is something I haven't even, really prefaced at all, but somehow you started a restaurant amidst all this with My Mother's Cutlets. I loved it. I just think from an entrepreneurial perspective, it's super interesting. And even just how you've been able to do it. Yeah. What's the story there?
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up. Obviously, I'm Italian. So in Italian households, we grow up eating chicken cutlets. Like, it wasn't McDonald's chicken nuggets. It wasn't, Chick-fil-A chicken fillets. It was chicken cutlets. So if you've never had a chicken cutlet, basically what it is it's a chicken breast pounded thin, typically by an Italian mother, brings out the meat cleaver and, makes it paper thin. They have to be paper thin. And then it's Italian seasoning breadcrumb, and you either have it with, American cheese, you could have it in a chicken parm, but it all starts with having a good cutlet. And growing up in the, family business, I always wanted a restaurant to call my own. So we had a little pizza place that was named Rena's, and it was good, but it wasn't a game changer. So I approached my dad and I said, I want to take over the lease. It's 800 square feet. I'm going to bring the closest thing to an Italian Chipotle that I can. And it's going to be based around my mother's cutlets. So my mom, also one of my best friends, makes, in my opinion, the world's greatest chicken cutlets. Now, if Italians listen to this, that's going to be a big issue because every Italian thinks their mother's cooking's the best. But I promise you, if you come down to 371 Hanover Street in Boston, Mass., you will try the best chicken cutlet you've ever had. And it's it's QSR. In an ideal world, would I love to expand it and franchise it one day? Absolutely. But right now, what it is, it's a place where if you want to come by, you're going to get a good sandwich. You'll be able to pick your type of cutlet, do chicken, eggplant, veal. You can even do a meatball if you want. You're going to pick your sauce. We got the best vodka sauce in my opinion. Pick your cheese. I like the burrata. Pick your toppings. We do caramelized onions, broccoli rabi. Look, if you want to think SweatHouz is healthy on this hand, my mother's Cutlets is over here. It's a great combo. But it is amazing. And the great thing about having Kevin involved with that is his wife is Italian. So she gets it. She loves cutlets. And she actually grew up eating my mom's cutlets given how long we've known each other. And look, in my opinion, I think an Italian cutlet can solve a lot of things. If you're having a bad business meeting, you put out a dish of cutlets, meeting will turn around real quick. So you're on a first date, things aren't going well. You walk into my mother's cutlets, I promise by the time you walk out, good things are going to happen. It's a guarantee.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, maybe I could use a little bit of that luck, but
just come by, I promise. And look, and I tell everybody that comes in, if we make you a sandwich and you don't eat it, it's fine. I'll eat it, and I'll back that up.
Next time I'm in Boston, I'll definitely take a visit. How did you, though, do this while pulling off building 3 SweatHouzes in a single year? And I mean that from more like specifically, how do you run your organization, right? Do you have employees who are helping out, I would imagine, quite a bit with the SweatHouz world so that you could even not just build the restaurant, figure out the supply chain, figure out the branding. There's a lot of things that go into these. So yeah, how are you able to manage separate projects at once like that?
Yeah, I think I'll start on the cutlet side. My aunt, my dad's sister, she runs Cutlets and runs it to the nth degree. She is amazing and she's a workhorse. So she really takes care of a lot of that. Well, I kind of focus on, all right, how do we make this thing something bigger? So how do we make the numbers great so that we can put a deck together and then go sell licenses and expand it, maybe find a second, third location. On the SweatHouz side, I said it before, but I put my SweatHouz team against any team in the industry. I don't say that out of arrogance or cockiness. I say it out of just belief that I know my team will go to war.
It's awesome what you built so far, man. So I'm excited to see how things continue to grow, especially now that Kevin's only really 1 month in and the impact he can make. Everyone will have all those links in the show notes. So if you can get in touch with Nico, check out his businesses. And yeah, man, maybe we'll have to get you on again when my mother's Cutlet starts franchising, hopefully. All right, guys, that's a pod.